what's been happening is cap rates have been being reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced. And so they started getting a bad rap for reduction of cap rates. And so when that happened, what ultimately with AG 49, it opened the door for companies to be able to create proprietary indexes and no cap products, meaning no cap rates. Now that sounds really awesome on the upside, because if your cap rate can't be reduced, then what could possibly go wrong? Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180. In this video, we're gonna be talking about Index Universal Life and the 5 dangers that Index Universal Life poses to you with your financial objectives. And I know I do a lot of talking about this, but this video is going to be very succinct, very pointed, speaking to the 5 areas where you are ultimately kind of at danger. And I don't want to overplay the danger in this, but I do think it's important that you understand what you're getting involved with and understand the moving parts, because there's a lot of manipulative sales tactics that go into selling Index Universal Life, because a lot of the benefits when people go, oh, there are no caps on this product. Well, there's always a lever, right? Maybe they say, well, the participation rate is guaranteed at 100%. There's always a lever that the insurance company controls. So what I want to do is I want to go through this step by step by step, just to inform you whether you want to do Index Universal Life or not. I think it's important that you understand the components of the policy that you need to be able to analyze to be able to make an educated decision, so you can't get duped out of your money. So let's get into this. All right, so the first thing that you have to understand inside of life insurance contracts with Index Universal Life are the cap rates. Now, this is the old school, kind of the traditional way with Regulation AG 49. When Regulation AG 49 came out, unfortunately, what happened is they got around a lot of the cap rate conversations, because what happened was for the past decade in Index Universal Life, what's been happening is cap rates have been being reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced. And so they started getting a bad rap for reduction of cap rates. And so when that happened, what ultimately with AG 49, it opened the door for companies to be able to create proprietary indexes and no cap products, meaning no cap rates. Now that sounds really awesome on the upside, because if your cap rate can't be reduced, then what could possibly go wrong? Well, I want to tell you what can go wrong. There's always a moving lever. And so this is the biggest thing. With a cap rate, they've been reducing those. If they can't reduce the cap rate, what they're going to do is they're going to reduce your participation rate. If the participation rate is guaranteed, then they're going to have a spread charge that they can add to the fee. And so what I want to do is I want to go through a couple illustration examples and show you these things and show you what I'm talking about for this in this context sequentially. So let me do that now. All right, so you can see here that we have cap rates here. So the multi-year index, you can see there's a cap rate of 9.5%, but you can see the guaranteed cap rate of 4%. That means right now the cap rate is 9.5%. The cap rate can be reduced to 4%. That is the contractual right of the company to be able to do so. The reason I focus on this so much is because if you were to look historically at every Index Universal Life company across the board that's been in business long enough, let's say a decade or more, every single one of those companies has reduced the performance of the policies for the policyholder 100% of the time. This happens. And so if we know that they have the contractual right to be able to reduce your performance, we know that they're going to do it. And so right here you go 9.5%. So let's say they say, okay, we don't want to focus on cap rates, so we're trying to get away from that conversation, so we're going to go to an uncapped index. Well, here's a way that they do it, and I have this highlighted here. The uncapped S&P 500 index, and you can see it's no cap, so hey, we can't reduce cap rates. Wow, it's got 100% guaranteed participation rate. And so that sounds really awesome. Now what do we see over here? We see, well, there's a spread charge. What does that mean? A spread charge means whatever the index does for performance, you minus out that spread charge, and that is what the company, that is, after that spread charge, that's when you start getting credited. So basically, currently, it's at 7.5%. So year one, the index, the S&P 500, has to do 7.5%, and then you start getting credited any growth from that. Now, where do they control this? They have the ability. You see the 10% guarantee. They can increase your spread charge to 10%. Think about that. They can increase your spread charge to 10%. So they can increase your charge there 33% higher than what it currently is, because 2.5% increase on 7.5 is 33% of 7.5. Now it gets even worse because over here, the index interest strategy charge rate is 0 in this. This is just another thing. It's not even one of my 5 areas, but you can see half of a percentage point there, they could raise that too as well. So ultimately, between those two things in this scenario, even though there's no cap and it's a guaranteed 100% participation rate, they add a spread charge in. Now let's go to a different uncap. You can see all these uncapped indexes down here. Now you can see that they're all 115%, 145%, 135%. These participation rates are really high. Notice that there's no spread rate, right? There's no spread rate. And on most of these, well, actually, look at this. So the indexed strategy charge is 1%. So it could go up to 1.5%. That's a 50% increase. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. 0% strategy charge on these ones, guarantee 1.5 and 1 and 1.5 there. And so those things are important to understand. Like, you have to look at all of the moving parts in where the insurance company mitigates their risk, and they always mitigate the risk by shifting the risk to the policyholder. That is why I don't like these policies. Now, when you look at this 115%, look at this 65% guaranteed. That means they can reduce your participation rate from 115% to 65%. So what does that mean? A participation rate means if the market does 10% and you have 115% participation rate, that means you get 115% of the interest credit to it, whatever the market does, as credit to your account. So if you understand that a 10% with 115% will get you an 11.5% credit inside of your policy, that is how that works. If they have the ability to reduce that to 65%, that means instead of getting 11.5%, you would get 6.5% in that instance. And so they have the ability in all of these instances, because you look at this, the 220% cap rate, or participation rate, I mean, can be reduced to 65%, and there's the 1.5% guaranteed strategy charge rate, right? And when you look at these, you realize that no matter what, once again, you got the cap rates, you have the participation rates, and you have the spread rates. So when there's not, when the participation rate is guaranteed, the spread rate is going to come into effect. When there's a cap rate, that cap rate is going to be fluctuant. And if the participation rate, you can see here, that's guaranteed. You have to understand all the moving parts, and these parts are in control contractually of the life insurance company, and 100% of the time they will move those numbers. So just looking at one more instance here, just to kind of prove the point here a little bit. And what you see here is the same thing. We have no cap. This is a different company. This is a Symetra IUL. And you can see here that 1 year, no cap, right? So it's guaranteed that there'd be no cap, meaning they can never reduce the cap rate. So that's awesome. It's a no cap, you're gonna participate. The index floor, they're guaranteed to have a 0% floor. You can't lose your money, quote unquote. Now, they have a participation rate. So it's a no cap with a 125% participation rate, but they can reduce that participation rate to 50%. So they're always going to reduce. So they make it sound like, oh, you can participate in the full upside of the market. That's not a guaranteed basis. And we know 100% of the time over a 10-year period, historically, IUL companies have reduced the performance of their policies. Why is it going to be any different? I just got done arguing with somebody about this. That's what kind of inspired this video, is the fact that they're like, well, you're going on the worst assumptions. And I'm like, well, I'm making assumptions based on historical data that shows every company over a 10-year period, once they get through surrender periods, reduce the performance of these policies. Now, these companies like Symetra, the companies like Nationwide, companies that haven't been doing this really long enough to get through full surrender periods even yet, these are financial experiments, and the fact that they don't even understand how this is going to impact their entire book of business, right? And so they're doing these high participation rates as marketing expenses to acquire new business, to create revenue. That's what they're doing. And so they have the ability, and they will, if history says anything about it, they will reduce these participation rates as it goes. Now you can see here, when we go down to the other allocation, we can see that they have a floor. They have no cap, again. And now you can see here, they actually include a spread rate and a participation rate. So this one gets even more confusing. This is actually worse because there's no cap, but they have a current spread charge of 5%, a current participation rate of 125%. And so that's just mind-blowing to me. The guaranteed spread rate can go all the way up to 20%, which means this company is completely insulated. You're taking all the risk as a policyholder. The participation rate could get dropped to 35%. And you can see the same numbers, a little different, 3% current, 20%, 175 and 45. So one way or the other, they have the ability to move these numbers. Now, when we go down to the core options for the index strategies for them, you can see 1 year, 9.5% can get dropped to 2.5% on the cap rate. 9.5% is a current cap. It can get reduced all the way to 2.75. Now, the participation rate is guaranteed at 100%, but who cares if the cap rate gets dropped, anywhere even near this? Do I ever think they'll drop it to 2.75? Quite frankly, no, I don't. Do I think they could drop it to 6, 6.5, 7? Yes, I do. I do. Now, these other ones, you can see these are no caps. The floors are where they are, but once again, the participation rates have the ability to be manipulated. You're never gonna find a no cap guaranteed participation rate with no spread charge. And that's the key thing that you need to understand. All right, so those are the first three dangers. It's the cap rate manipulation, it's the spread rate charge potential, and it's the participation rate manipulation. Now, the next thing is the cost of insurance charges. Those have the ability to go up. Now, I know a lot of people will say the net amount at risk is really the concern, but let me get to my whiteboard and show you something. All right, so for cost of insurance, here's the deal. You're always paying for the net amount at risk. So it's important to understand that you have annual renewable term is what is happening inside of the Index Universal Life policy. So with annual renewable term, what happens is, let's say you start with a death benefit of, let's say 500,000. Now, let's say you pay premium of 10,000 per year. So what's gonna happen is this premium is gonna go into this, you're gonna accumulate cash. So let's say year one, you have an accumulation value of, let's just call it 8,000 just for the realm of it. So at the end of year one, you're gonna end up with say 8,000 of accumulated value, and your death benefit is gonna go up to $508,000. So here's the deal. They always try to tell you, well, the cost of your insurance is going to go down and down and down because of the fact that your net amount at risk is going to reduce. But the way that these agents are structuring these policies is option B, which is or option 2, or increasing death benefit, INC for increasing. If they're doing one of those three things, or I guess it's all one and the same, but every company calls it a little different. And so with that, you're always gonna have this $500,000, because remember, as the cash goes up, so does the death benefit. So $500,000 is really the net amount at risk that is in play while you're doing option B. So what happens is, as you get older, that $500,000 is annual renewable term, and that doesn't seem like a big deal until you hit retirement. And when you hit retirement, the amount of expense that is associated with $500,000 of annual renewable term gets astronomical. And that as soon as you have that cost of insurance, along with taking policy loans for income in retirement, it can be absolutely catastrophic to a policy. So it's just another area where I cannot stand the way that there's doublespeak, right? They try to talk about, oh, well, the net amount at risk goes down. Well, no, it doesn't. If you design it properly, you can't use that phraseology and that methodology of talking about the net amount at risk going down when you're also gonna very intentionally and knowingly utilize option B, or increasing death benefit, as the way you design the policy, which is what almost every agent I've ever talked to is they're doing. They're utilizing this net amount at risk conversation and the fact that your cost of insurance is gonna go down in their marketing videos, and when then they go to design the policies, it's actually something completely different entirely. So then finally, the last thing, it's gonna be kind of piggybacking on the fourth issue, which is the cost of insurance. And this is not getting positive arbitrage in retirement. Unfortunately, a lot of these illustrations, actually every illustration, is designed if it has retirement income run in it, or any kind of loan feature, which is how the retirement income, tax-free retirement income, so to speak, comes out of the policy. If it's run with that, it has a basis of 50 basis points positive arbitrage baked into the illustration assumptions. Now, this is where Regulation AG 49B is going to be solving this, hopefully, and people are not going to be able to, agents are not going to be able to illustrate this unrealistic expectation, because that is not how they were designed to be able to actually perform, and there is actually a lot of risk. And to make it worse, when you look at the fact that when you're in retirement, you have a situation where you have policy loans, and you're going to pick up a policy loan rate with that. Now, you also have your cost of insurance, which is going to be higher. And so if you have negative years while you're in retirement and you have an IUL, you have an extra interest rate because you're utilizing index loans. If you're trying to pick up positive arbitrage in the policy, you're using index loans. And so you're going to build in an extra cost. Plus, every year, the cost of insurance, when you're 65 plus and utilizing this for retirement, if you have a couple bad years over a 5-year period, those costs of insurance are going to eat into it, and then the net amount at risk gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and therefore the cost of the insurance compounds against you. And the thing I don't like about these policies is we always talk about the power of compounding interest. Well, the fees, the expenses, the loans compound against you. This is why with the MPI, with maximum premium indexing with Curtis Ray, he sells his relock feature as the #1 component to what he does. It's the greatest risk. It's the thing that puts MPI and makes it a horrible, horrible plan, is because it's super dangerous. Because when you start borrowing against these policies, the loans work against you, and that is exposure. And those loans and those costs and those fees can compound against you, which is fine as long as we have nothing but perpetual growth, but that is not how they work. That is how they are sold. It is not how they function. And when you look at the fact, even if they are going up, even if the market continues to do well, this is why I did the IUL challenge. We just had the greatest bull run in the history of the stock market, and IULs still did not perform the way they said they would. Now, some of these IULs in the last couple of years, they have performed. They have. When I interviewed Bobby Samuelson, he even said it. He goes, listen, these guys, these IUL agents that sit here and they want to sell like they're the greatest product in the world because they've done so well, and it's like they hit the lottery, right? That's basically what it is. It's the equivalent. These IUL agents saying that they're these great policy designers is effectively the equivalent of a lottery ticket winner going in, getting their winning lottery ticket and coming out and being like, hey, look at me. Like, everybody should give me money to buy their lottery tickets because I'm obviously the best lottery ticket picker in the world. It doesn't work that way, right? We know that it doesn't work that way. History shows that a lot of these companies that have been doing this have not been doing it that long. They haven't been in the IUL game that long. And those that have, they are reducing performance, and they have reduced performance. There's not a company that's been around 10 years or more that hasn't reduced the performance of the contracts. And you can see, as I showed you, go look at every company across the board. They all have some variation of mechanism where they can reduce the performance of the contract on a contractual basis, so they hold the control. And if you look at the history of universal life platforms, which all Index Universal Life is universal life platform, it's a universal life chassis, and they're utilizing an options strategy, a hedge strategy, utilizing the money, creating an options budget based on the general fund performance in your account, going and getting those options, and then going from there. Now, I gave you the 5 risks. The 6 risks that I'd put in here is really the options cost and the risk to the options market. With the volatility, options costs go up. And honestly, as Index Universal Life gets more and more and more popular, they're creating more and more demand. And so there becomes a supply and demand issue on the options. The more they've created their own problem. And so that would be the 6th kind of bonus, is the options risk, because if you don't understand options, you shouldn't sell or buy one of these products, because, and that's the other thing. Here's the bottom line. When you understand how options work, you understand that that's what they're doing. No matter what index you're looking at, no matter which one of those options on all the index strategies I showed you, they're utilizing the same strategy. They're taking your deposit, they're creating an options budget, and that options budget is the same. And then they go out and they buy the options with it. So it doesn't matter if they show you a capped rate, a no capped rate, guaranteed participation rate, no guaranteed participation rate, but that a spread charge, anything of this nature, doesn't matter what they're doing there. They're dealing with the same budget and the same variables, so the performance has to fall into the same window no matter what, because that's what it's going to get, that's what they're going to be able to create based on what the options will provide them based on their budget and the cost of the options. And it's that simple. Anybody that tries to make it more sexy or more complicated than that either doesn't understand it themselves or they're lying to you. So that's it. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, that way you get notified every time I launch a new video. I'm sure this will be fun. Have a blessed, inspirational day. Take care.